Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for allowing me to take the floor to debate on this vital piece of legislation, that is the Virtual Asset and Initial Token Offering Services Bill in this August Assembly. At the very start, let me say that this bill bears testimony of this government's will and determination to stick to its vision and commitment to place Mauritius among the leading countries in terms of innovation and the provision of appropriate legal frameworks to better regulate the various sectors of economic activities. Certes, nous avons entendu et nous entendrons encore des commentaires négatifs, bien moins aujourd'hui sur le présent projet de loi, mais toujours des commentaires négatifs de l'opposition. Mais je voudrais tout simplement souligner que nous, de ce côté de la Chambre, nous avons une vision pour cette République et ses habitants. Permettez-moi également, Monsieur le Président, de rappeler les nombreuses critiques émises contre le gouvernement et les nombreuses questions parlementaires adressées ici même, dans cette auguste Assemblée, quand le pays avait été placé sur la liste grise du GAFI. Toutefois, nous avons démontré notre volonté de renverser la donne. Et aujourd'hui, nous allons encore plus loin en démontrant ce que nous aspirons à ce qu'il y a de mieux pour notre pays et son économie. Mr. Speaker, sir, with increasing innovations and developments in technology, the virtual asset landscape is growing at an unprecedented rate. Virtual asset trading activities have risen dramatically in recent years, and with that, the risk associated with virtual assets have become more apparent. Breaches in customer security, market manipulation, and the potential to use virtual assets in money laundering and terrorist financing. This government is more than determined on catching on to the need and benefits of developing regulatory frameworks in respect of this emerging market. And the virtual asset space is finding itself increasingly subject to regulatory scrutiny. Mr. Speaker, sir, I commend the Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance for having presented this bill to the House. We previously debated the Cybersecurity and Cybercrime Bill, which is a clear message that this government is well aware of the threats evolving in and around the cyberspace. The Cybersecurity and Cybercrime Bill plays an important role in subsequently implementing the VA and ITOS bill, and I shall dwell on this further later during my speech. Mr. Speaker, sir, blockchain, Bitcoin, crypto assets, virtual currencies, a whole new vocabulary describing innovative technology to swiftly transfer value around the world. The fast-evolving blockchain and distributed ledger technologies have the potential to radically change the financial landscape. But their speed, global reach, and above all, anonymity also attract those who want to escape authorities' scrutiny. Blockchain originated just over 10 years ago, Mr. Speaker, sir. Since then, virtual assets have become widely available and have started to be used as payment products. However, without established regulation and oversight, the sector is often referred to as the Wild West, and that has been mentioned previously, the Wild West of the finance industry. Monsieur le Président, j'aimerais rappeler à la Chambre un exemple que j'ai soulevé lors de mon intervention sur le projet de loi sur la cybersécurité et la cybercriminalité, à savoir qu'en 2017, l'attaque de Ranchon-Liciel rançongiciel, WannaCry a pris en otage des milliers de systèmes informatiques jusqu'à pousser les victimes à payer aux pirates une rançon en Bitcoin. Cet exemple a été mentionné par l'honorable Denou dans son discours. Et c'est vrai que les dommages ont causé plusieurs milliards de dollars aux hôpitaux, aux banques et les entreprises à travers le monde. Mais après ça, il y a eu d'autres attaques de ransomware. Et c'est une tendance qui est à la hausse. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill makes provision for custody and protection of client assets at paragraph 17 and also for the prevention of market abuse at paragraph 18. Monsieur le Président, les actifs virtuels présentent de nombreux avantages potentiels. Ils pourraient rendre les paiements plus faciles, plus rapides et moins chers, et fournir des méthodes alternatives pour ceux qui n'ont pas accès à des produits financiers réguliers. Mais sans réglementation appropriée, ils risquent de devenir un refuge virtuel pour les transactions financières des criminels et des terroristes. Le GAFI a suivi de près les développements dans la cryptosphère. Et ces dernières années, les premiers pays ont commencé à réglementer le secteur des actifs virtuels, tandis que d'autres ont complètement interdit les actifs virtuels. Monsieur le Président, cependant, jusqu'à présent, la majorité des pays n'ont pris aucune mesure. Mais nous, Monsieur le Président, de ce côté de la Chambre, en tant que gouvernement proactif, nous suivons fermement les recommandations du FATF. Ces déficiences identifiées dans le système de réglementation mondiale ont créé d'importantes lacunes dont les criminels et les terroristes peuvent abuser. Monsieur le Président, au paragraphe 2 de l'exposé des motifs, il est clairement mentionné que c'est la FSI qui aura la responsabilité de la fourniture d'une licence aux Virtual Asset Service Providers, les VASPs, l'enregistrement des Initial Token Offerings, le ITO, et de s'assurer que les fournisseurs de VASP et les ITO se conforment aux directives AML-CFT. Et ceci en se référant à la Financial Intelligence and Anti-Money Laundering Act, la Financial Services Act et la United Nations Act de 2019. Monsieur le Président, en tant que gouvernement responsable, grâce à ce projet de loi, nous appliquerons les mesures préconisées par le FATF, et cela sans perdre de temps. Cela garantira la transparence des transactions d'actifs virtuels et gardera les fonds liés à la criminalité et au terrorisme hors de la cryptosphère. Aujourd'hui, de nombreux fournisseurs de services d'actifs virtuels sont perçus comme des entreprises risquées et se voient refuser l'accès aux comptes bancaires et aux autres services financiers réguliers. Monsieur le Président, bien que la mise en œuvre des exigences du FATF soit difficile pour le secteur, elle finira par accroître la confiance dans la technologie blockchain en tant qu'épine dorsale d'un moyen robuste et viable de transférer de la valeur. Le FATF a révisé sa méthodologie d'évaluation qui définit comme il déterminera si les pays ont mis en œuvre avec succès ces recommandations visant à réglementer le secteur des fournisseurs de services d'actifs virtuels. And it's good, Mr. Speaker, sir, that I refer to this example, Malta, which is also called the blockchain island. They have taken a very progressive approach to cryptocurrency regulation, with established exchanges and businesses relocating to the region now. This can be attributed to a series of laws enacted by the Maltese government in 2018, aiming at providing regulatory certainty over the use and development of cryptocurrencies within the jurisdiction. The laws provide for a framework of regulatory instruments based on three fundamental principles: market integrity, consumer protection, and industry due diligence. They are as follows: the Malta Digital Innovation Authority Act, the Innovative Technology Arrangements and Services Act, the Virtual Financial Assets Act. Specifically, they provide a licensing system for providers of virtual financial asset services and regulate connected activities, including the initial offerings of these assets and the certification of platforms that these assets are offered on. Additionally, a designated regulatory body oversees the framework to ensure its effective implementation. Regulating virtual asset service providers avoids the danger that the growing cryptocurrency phenomenon is pushed underground. Getting regulation right ultimately helps to bring legitimacy and certainty to the sector in the eyes of institutional investors. Mr. Speaker, sir, through this bill, we will ensure that the legal framework is equipped to deal with the many contentious policy issues surrounding crypto and its subgroups. Here, I would like to highlight an important aspect mentioned in the fourth schedule, sections 27 and 32, as annexed to the bill. Paragraph W, I quote, "The Bank of Mauritius does not recognize virtual tokens as a legal tender, nor as a form of payment instrument that is regulated by the central bank." Unquote. So be it transaction mechanisms like Bitcoin, tokens like Ethereum or NFTs. The prime public policy concerns revolve around financial stability and how consumer and investor protection can be ensured. Other concerns are illegal activity, such as money laundering and terrorism finance, and blockchain, upon which crypto technology hinges, firstly, isn't immune to theft, and secondly, comes with the risk of no support or guarantee in case of any loss or hacking of the system. Mr. Speaker, sir, at paragraph 31 of this bill, provision is made for the advertisement related to ITOs, which shall not be misleading. Here, I would like to refer to blockchain site Polynetwork, which revealed that hackers had exploited a vulnerability in its system and hence manipulating information on its website. In addition, the largest single recovery of a cryptocurrency fraud by the US to date, the BitConnect Ponzi scheme scam, swindled thousands of people of more than $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. The US government is analyzing all these aspects in order to ensure the security of the financial system and prevent misuse of technology-driven financial instruments. Mr. Speaker, sir, sometimes the relationship between promoting financial innovation and tackling financial crime is posed as a zero-sum game. However, on this side of the House, we believe that the relationship between taking a tough stance on financial crime and enabling world-leading financial innovation to benefit consumers is complementary. Mr. Speaker, sir, criminals are generally rapid in adapting to new technologies. From the initial use cars of automobiles as getaway cars or malware to steal personal information in the early days of the internet, criminals were there first. This is because they're always on the hunt for new ways to commit old crimes and evade regulatory authorities using a new technology or methodology. However, this catch-me-if-you-can phase of any technological development, where many of use cases are nefarious, is hindered once a comprehensive regulatory framework to tackle the risks is implemented. Mr. Speaker, sir, it has been over a decade since Satoshi Nakamoto published the Bitcoin white paper, and today the crypto asset market and the regulation around it looks quite different. First of all, there are many crypto assets, exchanges, and businesses operating in this space, which has grown into an industry measured in billions. As the value and use of crypto assets have grown, so have the risk of financial crime. As crypto assets enable digital transfer across the globe of that value, they enable a unique set of potential money laundering risk. Through this bill, crypto assets are identified as a growing conduit for global money laundering and widespread concern about this typology among our law enforcement agencies. Mr. Speaker, sir, as we move forward for the implementation of this bill to supervision and enforcement, one area we're always looking towards is international regulatory guidance. These documents help inform our domestic approach, and over the past few years, US agencies have set the benchmark when it comes to communicating with the crypto asset market. Examples of these seminal documents include the SEC guidance on the Ethereum Decentralized Autonomous Organization, the DAO, published in 2017, or the CFTC's 2018 guidance on crypto asset derivatives, or the FinCEN's guidance published last year, which covered custodial and non-custodial crypto asset business models. These documents are not just useful for the market. We also find that they help inform our regulatory thinking in this fast-moving space. Lastly, one area that will be increasingly important is not just sharing views on crypto assets, but also working together in enforcement cases through intranational regulators such as the FATF, which we have done in the past. Here, I wish to also highlight and commend the tremendous painstaking job by all stakeholders and the Mauritian government to take Mauritius off the FATF's grey list. Financial crime, especially in this market, rarely respect borders. Mr. Speaker, sir, to conclude, allow me to stress that when we initiated the implementation of the AML regime for crypto assets, members on the other side of the House and other key actors were pessimistic on the way we will regulate Bitcoin or the blockchain. This government is not in the business of picking winners, but regulating financial activities. Therefore, our answer is and will still be, this is not different. We apply the same AML standards we expect from businesses operating in traditional financial services to the crypto asset economy. This strikes the right balance by facilitating innovation created by this technology while tackling the new risk of financial crime. Mr. Speaker, sir, on this note, I fully support all the provisions of this bill. Long live the Republic of Mauritius. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with the expansion of technological innovations and developments, the virtual asset landscape is growing at an unprecedented rate. Virtual asset trading activities have risen dramatically in recent years, and with that, the risk associated with virtual assets have become more apparent. Breaches in customer security, market manipulation, and the potential to use virtual assets in money laundering and terrorist financing. There is hence a need for robust regulatory frameworks governing the virtual asset domain. This is why, Mr. Speaker, sir, at the outset, I would like to state that we welcome the Virtual Asset and Initial Token Offering Bill. But at the same time, I shall raise several issues that the Honourable Minister will have the opportunity to clarify during his summing up. And, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is in no way negative comments as wrongly stated by the orator who spoke before me. Mr. Speaker, sir, the issues raised by members of the opposition, by members of this side of the House, are our contribution to the debate. And this, it should be like this in a democratic society. This is our role as opposition member to give our side of the coin. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Financial Action Task Force has been aware of the dynamic and evolving virtual asset domain and the risk associated with the potential misuse of virtual assets for money laundering and terrorist financing purposes. On June 21, 2019, FATF updated its interpretative note to Recommendation 15 on new technologies, which further clarifies the application of FATF requirements in respect of virtual assets and virtual asset service providers. Among other things, INR 15 establishes binding measures on countries to regulate or prohibit the extent to which virtual assets activities may be carried out, and to require VSAPs to implement the full range of AML-CFT preventive measures. FATF just describes INR 15 as imposing binding measures for both countries and virtual asset service providers to establish a level playing field across the virtual asset ecosystem. There are two factors that are crucial to the success: survival and competitiveness of our global business sector. It is innovation and regulation. So today the difficulty which we face is a balancing act between addressing the risk associated with virtual assets while ensuring that our jurisdiction remains an attractive destination for investment and business. It is therefore vital that we reinforce safeguards and control in the area of AML-CFT. Mr. Speaker, sir, 2021 has seen significant volatility in the prices of virtual assets. With such volatility, fortune has been made and lost. And we do not want the same scenario with virtual assets and initial token offering to be issued in Mauritius. There is a need to detail in this bill the types of virtual assets that will and will not be allowed. Would assets with no intrinsic value, assets not directly backed with the value of an underlying assets be allowed? Will there be an economic value behind the assets that we are trading? If yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, this could be reassuring. But we must see how the FSC will mitigate those risks, Mr. Speaker, sir. In addition, mention is made as to the activities conducted VSAPs in which would be deemed to fall under the purview of this legislation. It would have helped to explicitly outline the types of businesses that would fall under the ambit of this Act. There is no internationally agreed taxonomy classification for virtual assets across different types of regulations. That is prudential, market integrity, consumer protection, AML-CFT, or data privacy regimes. Rapidly changing technologies and new business model in this area also pose a challenge in defining a classification for these assets. Furthermore, complexity is added when virtual assets fall in two or more categories, depending on their design features and intended use over their life cycle. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius has been good in introducing legislation, but the real challenge, or should I say the real success, lies in its implementation. Implementation in this context means having the required resources, manpower, and expertise to license and regulate virtual assets providers. Government should recruit and train competent staff to service this new offering. This should provide the right tool to the FSC. We do not want just to tick the box, but be a financial jurisdiction, which means business. Implementation means the right people for enforcement, able to detect breaches and misuse. Several questions need to be addressed prior to enacting this legislation. As I said, is the FSC equipped to license and regulate such activities? Does Mauritius today have the proper ecosystem to enable a smooth functioning of the business of virtual assets? An example would be, would it be necessary for us to reinforce controls around the areas like cybersecurity? We did not see any amendment to the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act. Although the regulatory body, the FSC, shall be responsible to regulate and supervise activities related to virtual assets, ensuring that we have this ecosystem in place requires the participation of various ministries. Otherwise, likewise, all players in the financial and non-financial sectors should walk the talk and adopt a unified approach. Would insurance companies in Mauritius offer willing to offer sufficient cover to mitigate the risk of such business? Would banks open bank account for foreign investors not having a residency status in Mauritius, provided that they satisfy the AML, CFT, and KYC requirement? Virtual assets is an asset that carries considerable risk of MLTF. This has raised concerns with some countries banning activities related to virtual assets altogether. While government make the bold statement that this law has been introduced to meet the international standard prescribed by the FATF, the effectiveness of international standards depend on effective implementation by national authorities. Mr. Speaker, for AML-CFT regulation, implementing international standards, particularly those issued by FATF, should provide a solid base for effective AML-CFT compliance and guidance. An additional challenge relates to the identification of underlying economic function of the financial services that providers offer, particularly when novel instruments and operating models do not conform to existing definition. Having a novel product that is in much demand means we shall establish our competitive edge as an offshore jurisdiction. However, mechanisms should be put in place to deter misuse. With the advent of this law in Mauritius, virtual assets providers may flock to Mauritius. Having a robust AML-CFT regime is crucial, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, although this bill criminalizes non-adherence to the Act, we should ensure consequential amendments are brought to relevant legislations, and there is no overlap with existing legislation so as to create an uncertainty or any loophole. Here, as I said earlier, I'm referring to Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act and Electronic Transaction Act. With respect to sanctions and enforcement sanctions, given the importance of public and transparent enforcement actions to demonstrate authorities' commitment to implementing regulations and the role of those actions in helping the overall AML-CFT system to mature, further attention is needed in this area. And I'm happy to hear from the Honourable Minister. He reassured the House that he and his ministry has had extensive consultation with stakeholders, because it is imperative that the regulator has an open dialogue with the private sector and provide a roadmap for service providers. Such an approach, Mr. Speaker, sir, helps to prevent widespread lack of effective compliance. Clause 6 of the bill provides that the FSC, in collaboration with the Bank of Mauritius, ensure the financial soundness and stability of the financial system in Mauritius. We have seen in the past, Mr. Speaker, sir, that regulations are not always aligned. This approach will also ensure that potential inconsistencies with other players in the financial sector do not occur, and there is a synergy in the approach in the mitigation of AML-CFT risk. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, let me dwell on an important factor which, to my point of view, has not been dealt in the bill, but it could be dealt later on with a practice note. It's the taxation factor. Another important factor that has been, well, I won't say another important factor, but this factor has been overlooked is the taxation factor, as I said. This legislation is being introduced, as we all know, to serve predominantly the international providers and not exclusively Mauritian providers, if I'm not wrong. Although some substance requirements are and have been spelled out in the bill, the core income generating activities may effectively not be in Mauritius. What if the blockchain is stored in a data center outside Mauritius? This may give rise to tax liabilities. Also, income derived by virtual asset service providers does not fall under an exemption. For example, income derived by an investment dealer. Collective investment schemes. As we all know, collective investment scheme is subject to tax at 80%, tax exemption at 80%. Will the authorities provide similar tax incentive to virtual asset service providers? How will we attract investors or service providers if we do not have a favorable fiscal regime? Other novel products, such as family offices that we introduced recently in our law, we have enjoyed a tax holiday of first 5 years of operations. This will truly attract investors to our country. All these factors should be considered collectively with the introduction of this act. The bill provides for an amendment in the Income Tax Act, but apart from this, it is silent on all other fiscal consequences. This is why, Mr. Speaker, sir, I shall table the taxing virtual currency, an overview of tax treatments and emerging tax policy issued by the OECD. I shall table this paper, which is a very interesting one, and it addresses all the tax issues related to virtual currencies. And we will find in this document how the income created by crypto assets be treated or for direct or indirect tax, if considered to be property, should the stock of the crypto asset be included in the country as net wealth taxes where it exists? Would there be any capital gains on the tax? If so, how should they be valued? How should VAT system treat the creation, acquiring, and holding of and transfer of these assets? How can government effectively detect and address all these risks of tax evasion? All this, Mr. Speaker, sir, is addressed in this paper, and I hope we can get some clarification when the Honourable Minister of Finance will intervene just after me. Mr. Speaker, sir, international cooperation to oversee this sector effectively is key. The inherently cross-border nature of virtual assets, as well as the uneven global implementation of international standards in this area, make international cooperation a critical component for effective supervision. The arrangements are primarily based on pre-existing bilateral multilateral memoranda of understanding, and these arrangements, Mr. Speaker, sir, we can have exchange of information through the Egmont Group via the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, relevant exchanges of information on trends, typologies, challenges in the implementation of international standards. As I said earlier, international cooperation will be crucial for the implementation of such an act. And also, the Minister stated in his speech the travel rule. As we are aware, the travel rule is a binding FATF obligation. The FATF has provided clear guidance, that is Recommendation 16, which imposes the TR is a current binding obligation. The travel rule requires a relevant financial institution to pass on certain customer and transaction information to the next financial institution. A number of jurisdictions question whether they can reasonably impose a travel rule on VSAP until there are technological solutions available that could make compliance less onerous, as SWIFT does for corresponding bank. Surveyed authorities also raised concern that if these technological solutions were not commonly accepted or interoperable, compliance with the travel rule would remain burdensome. Mr. Speaker, let me raise some issues quickly before I conclude, and the Honourable Minister, as I said, could clarify during his summing up. The bill does not provide for exemption for certain activities which are not covered by registration or licensing requirement. These include platforms, which are mere meeting places where sellers and buyers may post bids, and offers where the parties trade in a peer-to-peer environment. Fintech service providers that use innovative technology to improve, change, or enhance financial services, but which are not virtual asset services. For entities or individuals providing a virtual asset service that represent an innovative use of technology or uses an innovative method of delivery that requires supervision and oversight that is not offered by an existing license or registration, does the bill allow those providers to apply to sit in a new regulatory sandbox? Does the law explicitly provide the electronic digital means for collecting KYC? I think this also is a very important issue so that we can relax customer due diligence requirement in non-face-to-face situation. Mr. Speaker, what are the recognizable or approved exchanges Mauritius has to vary or token issuers who may not wish to use a licensed trading platform to launch the virtual assets? But the advantage of the bill is that it creates a registration and licensing regime. Those seeking to show the highest level of regulatory compliance and good governance will find this appealing. The FATF recommendation refer to a requirement for licensing and registration of ESP to enable appropriate AML CFT. But the obligation under this bill, it goes far beyond this. And I think this is a very good thing. While we await further details, it will be important to ensure that the application of fees and annual fees, which is not detailed in the bill, of course, are not higher to those levies in competing jurisdictions. This is very important. And to conclude, Mr. Speaker, sir, in terms of consequential amendments, I would like to draw the attention of the House that in the present legislation of declaration of asset acts, which is of concern to every one of us here and many others, definition in the declaration of asset acts, securities, including stocks, bonds, treasury bills, or other units held in Mauritius or abroad. I think now, after the enactment of this law, we should add virtual assets and initial token. Because today, if a member of Parlement sells whatever he has and places all its money in a virtual asset, he is not binding under our Declaration of Asset Act to declare this virtual asset. I'm done, Mr. Speaker.
Don't open their eyes.
Honorable Dr. Rao.
Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable members of the House, it is a privilege for me tonight to address and participate in the debate regarding the Virtual Asset and Initial Token Offering Services Bill. And I would like to congratulate my colleague, Honorable Mayan Kumar Suratan, the Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance, for presenting this innovative bill to the House. I will also like to congratulate the Prime Minister, Honorable Pravin Kumar Jannat, for his determination and forward-thinking vision to bring our tiny nation to another dimension in this space. I also listened to all opposition members who did intervene in this bill, and they are welcoming the bill. And I will say I was quite impressed by Honorable Kushal Lobini's speech, showing his appreciation for government work. And he is an example to follow because he's bringing positiveness in what the government is doing. As we are all aware, we are all currently living in a new digital era where time is the essence to succeed. We therefore need to adapt ourselves fast and efficiently to have a competitive edge on other nations. The quicker we implement, the better it will be for our country. As announced by my colleague, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Honorable Renganaden Padati, in the budget 2021-2022, under the theme of the 3R, Revival, Resilience, and Recovery, it is clear that one of the main economic recovery plans for new normal is a fusion of financial sector with technology to build an innovative path for sustainable future in the virtual asset and fintech activities. The object of the bill is to provide a comprehensive legislative framework to regulate the new and developing business activities of virtual assets and initial token offerings. Mr. Speaker, sir, what are virtual assets and its huge benefits to Mauritius? A virtual asset is a digital representation of value that can be digitally traded or transferred and can be used for payment or investment purpose. One example that everyone knows is a Bitcoin, which is a virtual currency. Virtual assets are tipped to transform the world of finance, which will make the industry more transparent, less susceptible to fraud, and potentially cheaper for consumers. Growing interest in cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin and Ethereum, has led to more than 75 million people around the world using digital using blockchain digital wallets, which can be stored and manage cryptocurrencies. Mr. Speaker, sir, increased investment in virtual assets means the global cryptocurrency asset management market offers huge and top growth potential. Through this bill, we are creating a new industry with a current industry with enormous economic potential for our country. This new sector in the financial services industry has the ability to become the highest GDP generator for our country. The expanding crypto world offers limitless possibilities. A few years ago, the market was very, very small, but it is now worth more than $2 trillion US. Our country has the opportunity to act as a bridge between the traditional financial world and the newer world of virtual assets. Global exponential numbers reflect the strong growth in fintech companies that are keen to adopt virtual assets as part of long-term growth opportunities for businesses within the ecosystem. Mr. Speaker, sir, global trends are changing both the technology businesses use and the tools and techniques regulators need to adopt in order to help manage the risk they are exposed by these new technological advancements. Without a doubt, the changing landscape in global technology is in itself a good thing for efficiency and being able to compete in the fast-changing world. Mr. Speaker, sir, to strengthen the ecosystem by adopting a highly compliant approach which will enable a safe and secure virtual asset transaction. This is important because many traditional institutions have been hesitant about entering the market because of concerns about the performance volatility and regulatory uncertainty of virtual assets. Therefore, the urgent need to implement a regulatory framework for this evolving sector is important. The bill has been rendered necessary with a view to meeting international standards of the Financial Action Task Force by making provision for managing, mitigating, and preventing money laundering and financing of terrorism and proliferation risk, AML-CFT, associated with those emerging business practices. Mr. Speaker, sir, regulation of virtual assets is still evolving around the world. While regulators need to be aware of the risk posed by virtual assets, accommodative regulatory policies will be important in ensuring the product innovation is not restricted in this emerging field. This highlights the common issues of companies still having to navigate framework established by regulators who may be unfamiliar with the full range of use of blockchain technology. In this respect, the Financial Services Commission, established under the Financial Services Act, amongst its other functions and powers, be responsible for regulating and supervising virtual asset service providers and issuers of initial tokens offerings. Mr. Speaker, sir, this innovative bill will definitely lead in the long run to the emergence of blockchain technology across all industries and sectors of our economy. Blockchain has changed how we perceive problems. It has an enormous potential to bring tons of benefits. Blockchain technology solves key issues like trust in a network by changing the key parameters. Any organization can focus on solving the problem at hand. With blockchain, an organization can go for a complete decentralized network where there is no need for a centralized authority, improving the system transparency. Blockchain networks are also immutable. Immutable, which means that the data, once written, cannot be reverted by any means. This is also the right choice for the systems that thrive on immutable data. Global governments have also understood its importance and are keen on implementing blockchain technology. For example, Dubai Smart City 2020 is a project which aims to build a smart city with new technologies, including blockchain. Monsieur le Président, l'utilisation de la technologie blockchain présente de nombreux avantages par rapport aux autres technologies traditionnelles. Avec la blockchain, votre processus sera mieux protégé grâce à un haut niveau de sécurité. Les menaces de piratage contre votre entreprise seront également réduites dans une plus grande mesure. Comme la blockchain offre une plateforme décentralisée, il n'est pas nécessaire de payer les services d'entités centralisées ou d'intermédiaires. La technologie blockchain d'entreprise permet aux organisations d'utiliser différents niveaux d'accessibilité. Les rapprochements de comptes peuvent être automatisés. Les transactions effectuées sont transparentes et donc faciles à suivre. Mr. Speaker, sir, FinTech is growing at an incredible rate, with the COVID pandemic having accelerated global industry, growth to multi-billion dollars market right now, and expect to grow in trillion US dollars in very near future. Our country has therefore a huge opportunity and ability to tap in within this market, but we need to act fast and swiftly to attract global players in this sector to invest in the Mauritius jurisdiction. The implementation of user-friendly regulated framework is of an utmost importance to attract these potential virtual asset services in using Mauritius as a preferred jurisdiction to operate. Our country should become a global platform for these operators. This will definitely lead to a huge economic and social benefits for the country as a whole. No doubt it will lead to creation of new jobs opportunities and transfer of new expertise to our existing professionals in the financial services industry. Mr. Speaker, sir, the COVID-19 pandemic will be engraved in history as a time which has forced everybody to question, to rethink, to analyze, and review all our habits, our system, and our way of living. All sectors have been severely impacted, and amongst the main one is the economy and the financial sector of every country around the world. The remodeling and the re-engineering of financial system to adapt to the new normal is a must, and the process has already started in many cases. This bill presented to the House today is a strong message to the world that Mauritius is taking FinTech seriously. And this government is determined to make Mauritius the FinTech hub of the region and in Africa. Most foreign investors and tech companies are already lining up to make Mauritius the new homes. Recently, my colleague, the Honorable Minister Main Suratan, Minister of Financial Services, attended a global DeFi investment summit at Koda Art Center, where there were already international players attending to present the project, which will be hosted in Mauritius. This shows how the government is visionary and avant-garde. Among many projects presented at that summit was a project of digitalization of gold, announced by a Dubai-based company. As the previous orator before me mentioned about how a virtual asset will be backed, a virtual asset can be backed by gold. This was an example given during this summit, and in this type of project, it will help us as a country to be on the international map as a modern international financial center and FinTech hub. They are combining gold with blockchain technology, which will create a different investment assets class, a medium of exchange, and a reliable store value named the Golar token. The Golar token, this is an example of a Golar token, and this Golar token will be advertised across the premium and prestigious financial sites in the world, and the Golar token will be hosted here in Mauritius and operating under the virtual asset and initial token offering services bill. You can imagine how much the branding of Mauritius will be impacted positively through such project. Mr. Speaker, sir, the digital asset economy also led to emergence of initial coins offering, ICOs. This is a new way for companies to raise money by issuing tokens in their company or projects and selling these to the public. Some ICOs has been very successful, raising hundreds of millions of dollars. The digital asset class is just getting started. The value of all cryptocurrencies is still lower than the market capitalization of companies such as Google, Apple, or Amazon. Given the global disruptive impact from digital assets, the market is expecting a significant value appreciation over the next couple of years. One thing where change is visible already, but where the impact will be much bigger over the next years are initial coins offerings and the tokens that are generated through these events. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is very likely that ICOs will eventually take over the role that equity shares play in the current economy. Instead of issuing shares of a company could issue tokens that could be traded on any crypto exchange without having to go through brokers or existing exchanges. People can trade these directly. These tokens can be the same as shares, or they can have different properties. Tokens are programmable money. So they could, for example, represent only a part of the cash flow of the company or give investors less rights. This will change the financial industry, making it possible for any company to raise money from the public. Countries that will put legislation in place for this will be on the forefront of this change and could attract trillions of new capital. Mr. Speaker, sir, given the long-standing attractiveness of Mauritius as a jurisdiction for financial services globally, the government believes that an efficient regulatory framework that supports and empowers this emerging asset class could be an opportunity for Mauritius to take a global leadership in this industry. Mauritius is perfectly positioned to become the gateway for this evolution that is about to begin. Why over time there will be more than one hub for this industry? Mauritius today stands to have a very good chance to remain part of the global leadership given its geostrategic position, including the favorable time zone coverage of the country, especially since digital assets trade are 24/7. Mauritius has a window of opportunity to leapfrog other jurisdictions, that is Malta, Bermuda, Panama, Hong Kong, and Japan, with regard to a crypto-friendly legislation and regulation. Why? Because Mauritius has a time frame of 4 hours to Europe countries, and for trading of cryptocurrencies, we will be a hub and it will facilitate all tradings that will occur here. Mr. Speaker, sir, pro-digital asset legislation would mean that many cryptocurrency and digital asset companies would want to set up their operation in Mauritius. The USA and Europe are not providing the necessary infrastructure, and hence these companies are looking for a stable and attractive jurisdiction. Global experts believe crypto assets will on top of the current financial system and will make it more efficient and more profitable. It will positively impact the number of jobs in the financial sector in Mauritius. It will likely lead to a significant number of additional jobs. Being among the first to implement legislation will provide ease of access to these financial institutions and will lead to a large increase in the number of companies in crypto space to move in Mauritius. And with that, a large number of new jobs, tax revenues will be generated. It will reinforce Mauritius' standing as a global financial hub. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to conclude on this note. We should also remind that Mauritius has been removed from the FATF grey list and hence European blacklist after implementing enhanced AML CFT framework. 21st October 2021 is hence a day to remember and was a big national challenge to the financial sector that went through almost 20 months. Mauritius is now compliant with all 40 recommendations of the FATF, and this bill will help our economy to build up resilience and hence use our experience of dark days as a stepping stone for a better future. Let us don't forget that it is under the Prime Ministership of Honorable Pravin Kumar Jannat in the budget 2018 that digital asset was first recognized as an asset clause in the Finance Act. Make no mistake, at that time, we were among one of the first financial jurisdictions in the world to recognize digital asset in law. Already at that time, we were ahead in time compared to other global superpowers. Undoubtedly, our Prime Minister is a man of forward-thinking vision who has at heart to bring Mauritius to the next level of digital evolution for the benefits of the country as a whole at all levels. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm done.
Monsieur le Président, avant de rentrer dans le vif du sujet, permettez-moi de remercier mon collègue ministre, l'honorable Mine Siraton, pour présenter le Virtual Asset and Initial Token Offering Services Bill devant cette auguste Assemblée. Ce projet de loi est le reflet de la vision que ce gouvernement a pour Maurice. Un pays tourné vers l'avenir, accueillant les nouvelles technologies. Sous le leadership du Premier ministre, nous ne laissons rien au hasard pour consolider la position de Maurice comme un hub d'innovation et de création. Nous disposons déjà de l'infrastructure adéquate pour faire de notre économie un centre financier international 3.0, où la finance et la technologie forment la pierre angulaire de ce succès. Monsieur le Président, il va sans dire qu'au cours des dernières années, les investissements dirigés vers l'intelligence artificielle, la blockchain et les actifs virtuels ont connu une croissance exponentielle à travers le monde. C'est une opportunité dont nous devons nous saisir pour moderniser encore davantage notre structure économique et ouvrir la voie à un nouveau départ. En tant que centre financier international, Maurice a tout. Maurice a tout à gagner en se positionnant sur le créneau des actifs virtuels. Légiférer pour accompagner la digitalisation de l'économie, pour atteindre une trajectoire de croissance plus élevée et créer des opportunités d'emploi qualifiées pour nos jeunes. Voilà ce en quoi nous, de ce côté de la Chambre, nous aspirons pour le pays et pour les Mauriciens. Monsieur le Président, dans le discours du budget 2021-2022, l'emphase a été mise sur notre transformation digitale ainsi que sur l'accélération de la révolution technologique qui s'opère au niveau du secteur des services financiers. À ce titre, j'ai annoncé une série de mesures visant à soutenir le développement de l'activité des actifs virtuels dans le pays, en plus de l'introduction d'une nouvelle législation pour les actifs virtuels. En complément, les annonces suivantes ont d'ailleurs été faites. Il s'agissait de la mise en place d'une Digital Industry Academy par l'IDB afin de constituer le vivier de talents nécessaires pour accélérer notre digitalisation, faciliter les initiatives de transformation numérique et des activités de conseil aux entreprises dans le cadre du Training Fund du Human Resources Development Council, l'introduction de systèmes de paiement mobiles et sans contact dans le gouvernement, en commençant par le Registrar général, la NLTA et la Companies Division, la présentation d'un nouveau projet de loi sur les valeurs mobilières, facilitant notamment le commerce des actifs virtuels, le déploiement par la Banque de Maurice d'une monnaie numérique de la Banque centrale, la roupie numérique et l'introduction d'un code QR dédié au niveau national pour encourager les paiements numériques. Et enfin, la mise en place par la Banque de Maurice et la FSI respectivement d'un Open Lab pour les solutions bancaires et de paiement et d'un FinTech Innovation Lab pour encourager la culture de l'entrepreneuriat. Ces mesures, dont certaines se sont d'ailleurs déjà concrétisées, ont le potentiel de soutenir les activités liées aux actifs numériques à Maurice. Monsieur le Président, la blockchain ouvre la voie à de nouvelles façons d'envisager notre écosystème économique et financier. Il n'y a qu'à regarder l'évolution rapide du paysage des systèmes de paiement pour s'en assurer. La Covid-19 n'a d'ailleurs fait que renforcer ce processus déjà enclenché. S'appuyant sur l'accélération de la croissance des paiements électroniques et l'arrivée de nouveaux acteurs disruptifs du marché, les habitudes de paiement ont été révolutionnées. Plus encore, nous avons assisté à l'émergence des crypto-monnaies. Ce nouvel type d'actif a gagné en attractivité et a vu sa pénétration dans le monde des affaires s'accélérer. Avec la croissance des entreprises d'actifs virtuels dans le monde entier et la concurrence accrue entre les juridictions pour optimiser leur potentiel, il est nécessaire pour notre secteur des services financiers mauriciens de s'adapter et d'être à l'avant-garde de ces nouvelles technologies. Monsieur le Président, dans le sillage de 2018, nous avions établi un FinTech and Innovation-Driven Financial Services Regulatory Committee sous la présidence de Lord Meghnad Desai afin d'élaborer le cadre réglementaire pour le développement de l'industrie FinTech à Maurice. L'une des principales réalisations du comité a été de faire de Maurice la première juridiction au monde à offrir un cadre réglementé pour la garde des actifs numériques. Il a également identifié les domaines prioritaires dans l'espace réglementaire des activités FinTech. La Regulatory Sandbox License a ainsi été introduite. Elle offre la possibilité à un investisseur de mener une activité commerciale pour laquelle il n'existe pas de cadre légal ou de dispositions adéquates dans la législation existante à Maurice. L'objectif étant d'attirer les start-up et FinTech locales et internationales afin de leur permettre de s'établir à Maurice et de conduire des projets innovants selon un ensemble de termes et conditions convenus et pour une période de temps définie. Monsieur le Président, parfait exemple de la création destructrice schumpeterienne, la digitalisation de l'économie a créé de nombreuses opportunités tout en soulevant un certain nombre de défis. La réglementation de ces activités en est l'un d'eux. Alors que la technologie se développe rapidement, les risques, notamment du point de vue de la cybercriminalité, s'accroissent aussi. et cela souvent à des fins de blanchiment d'argent ou de financement du terrorisme. Les actifs virtuels, tels que les crypto-monnaies, sont un point d'attention particulier pour ce gouvernement, qui combat les crimes financiers avec la plus grande fermeté. L'absence de réglementation appropriée pourrait donc logiquement conduire au développement d'actes malveillants opérés par le truchement des crypto-monnaies. À cet égard, il est donc essentiel d'encadrer légalement ces actifs. C'est tout l'objectif du Virtual Asset and Initial Token Offering Services Bill. Monsieur le Président, comme j'en faisais mention il y a quelques minutes de cela, le commerce des actifs virtuels a le potentiel de devenir en soi un nouveau pilier de notre économie. Il agira à cet égard comme un catalyseur et dynamiseur de notre secteur des services financiers. En tant que gouvernement responsable, nous devons donc nous assurer que nous disposons d'un cadre réglementaire approprié pour les actifs numériques ou les entreprises positionnées sur le créneau des actifs virtuels. Comme cela a toujours été notre stratégie, il convient en la matière d'adhérer aux normes internationales et aux meilleures pratiques. C'est précisément ce que cherche à réaliser le projet de loi. Monsieur le Président, à vrai dire, son objectif est double. D'une part, il vise à fournir un cadre législatif complet pour réglementer les activités commerciales nouvelles liées au développement d'actifs virtuels et d'offres initiales de jetons. D'autre part, il vise à créer un écosystème propice à ces activités. Ce projet de loi est un texte législatif résolument moderne qui tient compte des avancées technologiques et des modèles commerciaux innovants sur lesquels nous nous penchons. Ce faisant, le présent projet de loi prévoit un espace réglementaire permettant aux entreprises de s'engager dans un large éventail d'activités commerciales liées aux actifs virtuels à Maurice et à partir de Maurice, y compris le transfert, l'échange d'actifs virtuels et de monnaies fiduciaires ou de différentes formes d'actifs virtuels, la garde et l'administration d'actifs virtuels ou d'actifs virtuels sous-jacents et l'émission d'offres initiales de jetons. En vue de lutter efficacement contre le blanchiment d'argent et le financement du terrorisme et de la prolifération, ce projet de loi adopte également les recommandations du GAFI, le groupe d'action financière sur les réglementations des actifs virtuels et des fournisseurs de services d'actifs virtuels. À ce titre, le projet de loi prévoit des dispositions pour gérer, atténuer et prévenir les risques de blanchiment d'argent et de financement du terrorisme et de la prolifération associée à ces pratiques commerciales émergentes. Il désigne par ailleurs la Financial Services Commission comme l'organisme de réglementation des fournisseurs de services d'actifs virtuels et des émetteurs d'offres initiales de jetons qui pourra accorder des licences aux fournisseurs de services d'actifs virtuels, enregistrer les émetteurs d'offres initiales de jetons et surtout déterminer si les fournisseurs de services d'actifs virtuels et les émetteurs d'offres initiales de jetons respectent, aux fins de la lutte contre le blanchiment d'argent et le financement du terrorisme et de sa prolifération, la Financial Intelligence and Anti-Money Laundering Act, la Financial Services Act et l'United Nations Financial Prohibitions, Arms Embargo and Travel Ban Act 2019. En outre, en vue de protéger les lois des clients d'actifs virtuels, il constituera désormais une infraction de criminalité financière de fait d'exercer des activités commerciales en tant que fournisseur de services d'actifs virtuels sans être agréé en tant que tel, d'exercer des activités commerciales en tant qu'émetteur d'offres initiales de jetons sans être enregistré en tant que tel, et d'être, pour toute personne en violation de ce nouveau cadre réglementaire. Monsieur le Président, pour conclure mon propos, permettez-moi de réitérer la volonté de ce gouvernement de placer Maurice sur la carte des nations de l'innovation et de la création. Bien conscient des nouveaux risques que cette catégorie d'actifs fait naître, nous avons fait le choix audacieux, mais responsable, de prendre les devants en régulant plutôt qu'en réprimant, en légiférant plutôt qu'en ignorant. Ce gouvernement embrasse l'innovation tout en restant ferme sur sa position en matière de lutte contre le blanchiment de capitaux et le financement du terrorisme. En accompagnant l'émergence des actifs virtuels, nous avons la possibilité de façonner l'avenir de notre pays. Il s'agit en effet d'être proactif en introduisant des législations appropriées pour contrer les effets de toute menace qui pourrait compromettre notre développement futur. C'est sur la base de ces prémices que ce projet de loi est présenté. Ce gouvernement a déjà pris à de nombreuses reprises des mesures audacieuses, malgré les difficultés actuelles liées à la pandémie de la Covid-19, pour renforcer notre résilience. Nous continuerons à le faire dans l'intérêt du pays, dans l'intérêt de la population. Grâce à cette stratégie, instigée par l'honorable Premier ministre, nous avançons à vive allure vers notre objectif, celui de ramener au plus vite le pays sur les rails d'une croissance robuste et inclusive. Nous sommes les bâtisseurs de notre destin. Nous ne pouvons pas nous cantonner au rôle de spectateurs. Ce serait aux antipodes de l'ADN de ce gouvernement. Je termine en adaptant les propos d'Alfred Sauvy. Despote conquérant, le progrès technologique ne souffre pas l'arrêt. Tout ralentissement équivalent à un recul, l'humanité est condamnée au progrès à perpétuité. Merci de votre attention.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I wish to make an urgent statement in the public interest in regard to the tendering exercise for the procurement of molnupiravir in order to dissipate any misunderstanding by the members of the public at large. Mr. Speaker, sir, the first tendering exercise for procurement of molnupiravir. On 25 October 2021, Mr. Alok Kumar, representative of Dr. Reddy's, informed the ministry that he would be in Mauritius from 27 October 2021 to 2nd November 2021. He informed that Dr. Reddy is a leading pharmaceutical company from India and collaborated with major companies like RDIF for Sputnik V, Gilead for Remdesivir, MSD for Molnupiravir, and Fujifilm for Favipiravir to service these important products to overcome COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Alok requested for an appointment to discuss the supply of Molnupiravir. I am tabling the papers on above statement. On 29 October 2021, a meeting was scheduled with Mr. Alok and officials of my ministry. Mr. Alok informed that Dr. Reddy's laboratory had obtained authorization to manufacture molnupiravir under license with Merck. He informed that in case ministry required the drug, a formal request on the quantity required needed to be made in order to enable it to start manufacture the drug. Mr. Speaker, sir, on 12 November 2021, Mr. Alok Kumar informed the ministry that molnupiravir had obtained UK NHRA. He also informed that Merck USA had authorized Dr. Reddy's to supply the drug to Mauritius. On 14 November 2021, the ministry requested Dr. Reddy's to inform about the earliest delivery and other terms and conditions. On 14 November 2021, again, Dr. Reddy's informed that it was proposing two options. First, either to supply the drug directly or through their local representative, Hyperform. In both cases, the delivery would be by 4th week of December 2021, and the price would be USD 1.3 per capsule. My ministry opted for the option to provide the drugs directly from Dr. Reddy's and not from the local representative Hyperform Limited. The laboratory also proposed to organize training programs for healthcare staff. Mr. Speaker, sir, on 25th November 2021, Mr. Alok Kumar informed the ministry that molnupiravir had received WHO treatment protocol on 15th November 2021. Moreover, other drugs had not yet been approved in India, and the company manufacturing same had to obtain special export permit from CDSCO for export to Mauritius. It is confirmed that the drug would reach Mauritius around 25th December 2021. At our request for earlier delivery, the company agreed to expedite the delivery as at 10th December 2021. As at now, no confirmation has been received, and the latest information from Dr. Reddy that the drug will be available on 25th December 2021. On 10th December 2021, Dr. Reddy has informed that it will be organizing a scientific event from 19 to 21st December 2021 at La Bourdonnais Waterfront Hotel to discuss drug development, clinical trial approval, safety profile, and other medical aspects. Mr. Speaker, sir, the second tendering exercise for procurement of molnupiravir. On 15 November 2021, Dr. R.R., consultant in charge, chest diseases and tuberculosis, requested for an immediate purchase of molnupiravir for 30,000 patients. The same request was again made on 24th November 2021, and the papers, I'm tabling the papers for the above statement. On 25th November 2021...
You don't have to interrupt the proceedings of the House. And this is the last warning. Please continue.
Mr. Speaker, sir, on 25th November 2021, Mr. Naik, the principal pharmacist, informed that there were 5 manufacturers in India who could supply the drug. Restricted bidding was sought from the local representative of these manufacturers for the supply of 800,000 doses of molnupiravir. On 26 November 2021, 4 bidders submitted quotations as follows. IBL Limited, 36,900,000 rupees, Trident Healthcare, 26,600,000 rupees, Hyperform, 59,200,000 rupees, Mauritius Pharmacy, 7,446,000 rupees. On 6 December 2021, the contract was awarded for the supply of 800,000 doses of molnupiravir for the total amount of 7,446,000 rupees with delivery date within 15 days as from the letter of award. I'm tabling the papers on above statement. Mr. Speaker, sir, given the bed occupancy for the last week of November and first week of December 2021, the factual figures provided on a daily basis from all regional hospitals and ENT hospitals on bed occupancy and number of deaths were on the increasing side. And the request of Dr. R was for the procurement of 1,200,000 capsules, that is 30,000 patients multiplied by 40 doses. My ministry decided to seek other sources for molnupiravir. Again, I'm tabling the paper for the above statement. The third tendering exercise for procurement of molnupiravir. On 7th December 2021, a pro forma invoice was requested from CPN distributors for the immediate supply of 1 million doses of a generic version of molnupiravir. CPN Distributors is a wholesaler distributor situated at Saint George Street, Port Louis, and having a sub-office at Long Mountain. The CEO is Mr. AC, and pharmacist in charge is Mr. SS, and incorporated at Companies Division since March 2017, registered as wholesaler with Pharmacy Board since 29 July 2021 under the Pharmacy Act. It is not an unsolicited bid, but he did inform the ministry that he has molnupiravir. He submitted a proposal following request for pro forma invoice for immediate delivery as per usual practice. Again, I'm tabling the papers for the above statement. Mr. Speaker, sir, on 7th December 2021, Mr. CPN Distributors submitted its pro forma invoice for the supply of 999,000 doses tablets of molnupiravir, generic version of molnupiravir, at the rate of 79 rupees 92 cents, and for the total amount of 79,840 rupees 80 cents. The letter of award was issued on the same day. Again, I am tabling the papers for above statement. It is a regulatory authority in India which authorizes the export of the drug, and this is why CPN Distributors Limited can deliver 1 million doses as opposed to 1.2 million requested by Dr. R. I have to inform the House that the expiry date is linked to the manufacturing batch number. The earlier the manufacturing date, the expiry date also be earlier. Hence, the drug supplied by CPN Distributors Limited bears an expiry date earlier than that of Mauritius Pharmacy, which has not yet been received. Mr. Speaker, sir, for the emergency procurement under PPA and Directives number 16. Regarding, Mr. Speaker, sir, my ministry has followed the procedures laid down in Section 21 of the Public Procurement Act and Regulation 5C of the Public Procurement Amendment Regulation 21. In fact, my ministry has acted in accordance with the provisions of Regulation 5C1, which stipulates that, subject to Section 21 of the Act, where public interest demands the emergency procurement of any goods, works, consultancy services, chief executive officer of the public body shall evaluate the need for the emergency procurement and decide in the manner to proceed in
Please
order.
withdraw from the chamber. You were waiting for that. You were waiting for that. You were waiting for that. And I stand them and I name you if you continue. I name you if you continue. You were waiting for this. Create disorder.
You are protecting him. You are a goalkeeper and a very bad one at that.
I am naming
You should
you.
be ashamed of yourself.
I am naming you. I am naming you. Wait, wait. Honorable members, order. You have seen the opposition provoking. And since this morning, I'm talking to the House, to the whole chamber, and the population at large. This cannot continue. The opposition has to take its responsibility in the House. Please continue.
Furthermore, Regulation 5C2E and F also stipulate that the ministry may have recourse to direct award due to absence of competition or due to extreme urgency. The situation was one of extreme urgency, as we had to save the lives of COVID-19 infected patients who would otherwise have died. Still, in line with the provision of Regulation 5C, 3A, my ministry had to have recourse to emergency procurement in order to efficiently and effectively give treatment to COVID-19 patients who would otherwise have had no such treatment. Finally, my ministry has followed the provisions of Directive number 60 issued by the PPO on 30th November 2021. In fact, given the exceptional circumstances, my ministry had no option but to have recourse to provisions of extreme urgency to procure this essential drug, which has proved its efficacy in treating COVID-19 patients by reducing cases of hospitalization, oxygen support, and eventually death by more than 30 patients. Again, I'm tabling the statement for above. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
I will suspend the sitting for 1.5 hours.